Hello, and welcome to an all new episode of Black Artists Connected Writers Group. I am one of your hosts, Kinte, all the way live from Los Angeles, California, and I'm so happy to be here. And I'm with my lovely co-host. When we can't see her this week, but in the future we will be able to see her. Right now, you're just a phone icon for those who are looking. We have Imani Williams. How you doing, Imani?
I'm real good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a interesting day here in Los Angeles, and I'm really, the weather's been great. It's just been, bright and sunny and happy all here in Los
That's what's
Angeles.
up.
That is what's up. And today, in our first episode, we have a wonderful guest, Cruz OmegaSoul. How you doing, Cruz?
I'm super good, chilling,
All
chilling,
right.
living and breathing.
Yes. So we're gonna chop it up with you, and we're gonna talk a lot about you and what you've been up to, and you're gonna read some poetry at the end of the show, right?
Yes, yes, indeed.
All right. So before we do that, I want to take this moment to give some special love to my co-host, who unfortunately we can't see her beautiful face today, but Imani Williams, who is the one of the lead administrator in the Black Artists Connected Writers Facebook group, and she's done such a fantastic job with shepherding this group. And I want to give a special love out to you, Imani. How much I deeply, just love and admire the work that you do, and how amazing of a job that you do.
Thank you. And it is a team effort, and much of that effort comes from the other writers who participate on a daily basis. It's amazing. It's an amazing space, and it's an amazing place to write and to grow and to connect. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us, and kind of give us a little background on yourself for those who may not know.
I've been writing most of my life since elementary school, and writing is something that I always fall back on when I'm going through things, when things are good, when things are not so good. Writing just kind of saves me. It's an opportunity to, for self-expression, to get whatever is inside of me out, and it helps me to feel better. And I just, without writing, I probably would just die. I have to write.
So does that mean that sometimes some of the people that intersect in your life, like whether it's friends, families, people that you may be interested in romantically, they make it to your writing?
Yes, sometimes. A lot of the times. I spill a lot of tea because it helps with the healing, and we all have things that we need to get to the other side of. So yeah, as an essayist and as a writer of creative nonfiction, mostly, I'm writing true things and things that have happened to me, and or things that I've gone through, and it just helps me to grow further. The process. What happened? What could I maybe have done different? And it just always comes back to writing for me. And as of late, poetry is my new love. And I've found that you are able to write on. I've found that you're able to kind of shape a story, take a narrative and put it into poetry form, and it comes out a different way, differently, if you will, from writing an essay. It's just like hitting it from different angles. So it's an artistic craft, I think, that I'm growing into, and I really have fallen in love with poetry, and that is due, in fact, to WBAC and all the wonderful poets, including Cruz, who was, one of the first members, and we connected. He and my dad share the same birthday, and just good people. And so with that writing and with his poetry and with his the Zen space that he holds, and that he carries, I've learned a lot from him as
Mhm.
well.
Well, without further ado, let's once again reintroduce our guest for today, Cruz OmegaSoul, which is, first of all, brother, that's a cool ass name. I'm assuming that's not your government name, but such a wonderful name, man. I like that. So how did
Thank you.
we
Thank
get
you.
Cruz OmegaSoul?
I went through a lot of different iterations before I got there. You know, originally it was Cruz La. You know, I got it from a Spanish teacher. I was learning Spanish back when I was a teenager, and when they asked, I was like, if I was Latin, what what would my name be? Like, what do I look like my name would be? And she came up with Cruz, and I took that and ran with it. I used to call myself a legend, you know, because that's what I'm aspiring to be. So, legend in Spanish is legenda. So, Cruz legenda. So, after a while, I figured out a new mantra, which would be Omega Soul.
Now,
Omega being last,
mm-hmm.
and you know, soul being something internal that's epic. So I thought of myself as sort of a dying breed of artists. So that's how Omega Soul came about.
Now you got to be a cool cat to take a name like that. You can't just be some regular cat. You know what I mean? You can't be Cruz OmegaSoul and not be cool. So but you seem like it may fit you pretty well. So yeah.
I definitely work hard to try and live up to the mantra.
I respect that. I respect that. So, you know what I like to do when I interview people is I like to go from the beginning and kind of give the audience a real idea of where you come from. So I want to start off with where are you from originally? Where were you born?
I was born in Washington, D.C.
All right, D.C. Chocolate City.
Yep. I was raised mostly in Baltimore, Maryland, and in the mountains in Virginia. So kind of half there.
All right. So now I've known many people to come from that area, the DMV area, especially the DC area, and that vibe there really, from what I can see, I guess you could say that with any place, but definitely there, it really contributes to a lot of people's creativity. Would you say that being from that area has done that for you as well?
I would say, yeah, I would say that. I would say poetic side and performing experience.
We're getting we're having a little technical issues with you. Let's try it again. Say that one more time.
Well, I said that. What did I say? I said that Virginia. That's where I started writing poetry, and Baltimore, Maryland, is where I got my performing experience. So each place sort of gave me a little bit of something.
Now, I've often said that Baltimore is my second favorite city in the world. I love that place. Now, do you, at this point, do you ever get a chance to go back to the DMV area? Because you're in Cali now, right?
Yep. Actually, LA. Yeah, LA County. But I actually just recently moved here, so yeah, I'm like almost a month in. Just came from there, so I haven't had a chance to really sink my feet into LA yet.
All right. So now, where did you go to high school at? Was it in DMV area?
Yeah, I went to a high school in Virginia. It was a high school called Liberty High School, which is in Bedford, Virginia. It's all the way deep, close to the mountains.
Were you one of those people that at a very young age you knew what you wanted to do with your life?
Yes, but writing is actually martial arts.
Oh.
I started out wanting to be a martial artist, and I started writing to try and impress girls. And once I saw that worked, I just kept at it, and then it graduated into something more serious.
You know what? I find that a lot of the decisions that us men make is revolved around, how girls perceive it. Like, I think Chris Rock used to do a bit about how the kind of house we buy, the kind of car we buy, the kind of job we get. It's all about y'all, Imani. It's all about
right?
Yeah. So I understand. I definitely understand. It's our little master plan to get next to you guys. But I love it though. So let's talk about your writing. How would you describe the kind of writer you are, and what are your influences?
Type of writer I am, I would say that a lot of my writing stems from emotion. I would say I'm an emotional writer. Along with being a little bit technical when it comes to metaphors, because I really like to get into heavy metaphors as well. So I would say my earliest influences were William Blake, because his writing is extremely metaphoric. So I kind of take a lot of inspiration from that. Other than that, I don't really have too many sort of recent contemporary writers, other than the writers that I've met in the writing group.
Now, Imani, what was it about Cruz's writing that caught your eye first?
The deepness. He's a very deep brother, and it comes through in his writing. I think he is very meticulous, and as to what he puts on the page, like a lot of thought goes into it. And it's just filled with feeling. Everything he writes.
When you put that kind of emotion on the page, you put yourself in a vulnerable state. How does that feel though, to pour so much emotion and passion and also, so much of yourself on page? Is there sometimes where you want to pull back because you feel like you're sharing too much, or is it like a cathartic type thing that really helps you as far as your journey as a human being? I think we might have, we're having a technical difficulty. Let's see if we can get him back in there. Let's try one more time. We're going to get him back down there. Sorry about that. All right, we're having a technical difficulty. We will be back momentarily.
Yes.
All right, there we go. Sorry about that. We were having
That's okay.
Technical difficulty. But all right. So the question I was asking you was, by being in such an emotional state where you put so much of yourself on page, how does that make you feel? Do you ever feel like, man, maybe I put too much on there, or is it such a cathartic experience that it is what it is?
For me, it's a bit of both, because as a teenager, I was overtly an emotional teenager. So being able to write, I found a way to sort of focus that emotion, and that way I could focus it in my writing and be sort of a less visually emotional person. So it kind of helped bring a bit of balance to my life. So when I'm writing, I usually try and take it sort of as far as I can, put as much in my art as I can to sort of bring about a freeing feeling, because I have so much emotion that I'm trying to get out,
Yeah, I was wondering too with you, Imani, do you find that you in your writing, how is it to get to that place for you?
I used to hold back. I used to worry about offending people because my truth may not necessarily coincide with what they see as their truth. And I don't anymore. I get it out. Truth. If I know that I'm writing truth, I write it, and I have learned to be okay with that. I think that as a writer, you owe that to yourself. So I put it all out there.
Poetry. I write screenplays, right? And
yes.
I've made some failed attempts at writing poetry. It's not easy. Just people think because you rhyme, you done did the job, right? And and there's a lot of, I used to go to the slams, right? And that, when it was really big, and what I found was there was a lot of people doing a lot of talking, but they weren't saying nothing, and so as a writer, Cruz, like, how is it, like, how do you do that fine line of where you saying a lot, but you're actually saying something? You're not just putting a bunch of flowery words together that rhyme, but you're actually speaking in your poetry.
For me, it actually came from watching a lot, because I used to go to a lot of poetry events, and I would listen to how a lot of writers sort of perform on stage, and you'll see a lot of sort of stereotypical poetry, and they'll come with the same type of flow, the same type of topics. And my goal when I was younger, and it's somewhat still the same today, I wanted to get so good at poetry that, I could take it to like a legendary level, like win a Pulitzer Prize or something. So I was always like, can I say that someone else hasn't already said? How can I say it differently, sort of on a deeper level, to where it'll touch people the way that they haven't felt before? So for me, that was always my goal. So in operating that way, my writing always came out differently than how other people would do it. And then I always aimed to perform it differently how other people would do it as well, because I'm always trying to bring some sort of originality to it. That's one of my highest goals, is to maintain originality.
There's the writing aspects of poetry, but then there's also the performance aspects. How much time do you put into the actual performing your poetry, and how much of that part of being a poet is important to you, like actually performing your work in front of people?
When it comes to poetry, I don't really, hold a lot of weight towards me performing poetry, because a lot of my poetry, the way that I write it, a lot of it, I guess, would sound better you reading it to yourself than me performing it. Because I don't really write too much performance poetry. I sort of write literature version of poetry. When I perform, I like to perform. If I do perform, I'd rather write a poem that's structured like a song, and then perform my vocals singing rather than poetry. I don't know. For me, it's different reading poetry than it is singing. So I would always rather sing than read poetry.
Do you like the public speaking aspects of reading your poetry? Or are you more of a, I just kind of like to write it and just put it out in the world?
Yeah, I'm not the best public speaker. That's another thing.
Okay.
So, I can go and I can sing and I can get that out of the way, and it's a whole different thing for me than it is to stand up there and read line after line. It'll get kind of awkward sometimes. But I mean, there are times when I practice it to the point where I can go on stage and perform a piece that was written, for the meaning of performing. But yeah, I wouldn't really say that I'm that much of a performing poet. I'm more of a on paper literature poet.
Now, this question I have for both of you guys. I've done short films where it may not have been as deep to me what the thing was about, but then when people see your work, they interpret it in a way that you never even thought about your own work, and it kind of blows your mind when you're like, where do you see that at? So I'm wondering, for both you, Cruz and Imani, like, have you ever had someone see your work, read your work, and then be like, and they get something totally that, it wasn't, it made you think about your own work differently? So we'll start off with you, Cruz.
That's actually why I really like to write metaphoric pieces, because that happens often. I'll write something in a metaphoric way and people will take from it completely different things than I even meant for it to be, and I dig that because I feel like that gives it the ability to tell different stories to different people, so that happens pretty often to a lot of things I write.
What about you, Imani? Have you ever had that happen to you?
I would say yes, and partially because of the topics that I cover as an activist. So we're talking about, issues affecting women. We're talking about, mental illness in Black communities, the hush hush things that we don't talk about, the struggles that, our people have come through. And I think, we all have different experiences, but we also have things that are kind of common to us. And so, yes.
Now,
and my topics aren't always easy. They're hard, and they're things that we need to address as a people. So I kind of like that, somebody may see something different in my writing than what's on the paper. Like, they're able to dig through it a little bit and say and find a connection, that's specific to them and their experiences.
I'm gonna tell you guys a little secret. I did a short film, and someone saw it, and their interpretation of the work was so dope. Like, it's now become what it is. Like, I'm sitting there like, dang, that's pretty dope. Like, I ain't even, like, it wasn't even that deep to me. And they saw things that I didn't even see. And I was like, yeah, that's it right there.
Right.
I was like,
that's the great thing about art, It's
right.
the great thing about art.
I was like, man.
And what Cruz didn't say, but what I am going to say is that with his music, with his vocals, I mean, it just like, it takes you somewhere. His voice is so unique. It kind of put me in the mind of Deep Forest, and I love Deep Forest. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lullaby Baby. It takes you somewhere. You leave here, and you connect somewhere else. Whether that's on a spiritual plane, which is usually where his especially when I hear him sing, he doesn't do it that often. But every time I've heard it, it's just so moving, and
that's where
very unique in his message and his delivery of his message. And yeah,
yeah, and
it's always good.
Yeah, and let's talk about your music. I read that you describe your music as genreless. So, kind of give us an idea what you mean by that. And for those who may not have heard your music, give us a kind of a breakdown of what they can expect when they hear your music.
Well, I'll first say that with every music release that I release, there's always poetry infused because it's kind of my first talent. So everything that I do will have some level of poetry in it.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is that I don't really like to stick to a certain genre. So a lot of different musical influences will be in my different pieces. Like every album, I'm trying to push the boundary and find a new sound, some new inspiration, create new stories. So, I don't really like to be held in a box. So you could hear almost anything in the type of music that I make. It's a very wide range.
Mm-hmm. How does a person even get to that plane? I can imagine it must be from your background. What kind of music did you grow up listening to?
I would say my biggest influence, which you'll probably hear that if you listen to my music, my biggest influence is Michael Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, my parents used to play it, and I would always hear it around, and it was sort of like a thing that I couldn't escape. And the music was so passionate, and because he himself delved into many different genres, I kind of learned from that. Another big influence was Sade.
Oh yes, love Sade.
Another big influence was Curtis Mayfield.
Great.
He was like very instrumental to me creating my sound. Those are probably the three biggest influences in the type of music that I make.
There was a time where you would go to an art opening, and Sade was like the soundtrack. I mean, even still today. It was Sade was going to be playing in the background, and then for a minute, Les Nubians kind of took over for a minute, and then it was back to Sade. So Sade is, one of the great talents and Michael Jackson, Curtis Mayfield. So definitely we're on the same page when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. What about your family? Did you have family influences at all? And I love to ask this question: was your family, because some family members, when you say, look, I want to be an artist, I want to be a poet, they're like, nah, man, there's the post office, there's, laying bricks. Was your family like supportive of that, or did they tell you to, I don't know about
that? That's a tough question because my background makes it a very complex question to answer. I'm gonna try and answer it the simplest way possible. Mm-hmm. A lot of my art is inspired from the lack of family that I had, because I didn't have much family growing up besides my siblings. Mm-hmm. So my art is sort of inspired by a lot of lack. So the family that I did have later in life wasn't really supportive when it came to the art, because before I graduated high school, I wanted to go to school for writing, and they didn't think that was a very smart thing to do. Instead they were pushing me to do something that was more practical, like nursing or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I went to school for the wrong thing and ended up wasting time. And, it kind of brought me to the drive that I have today, about not wasting time and moving forward with the art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, real talk, you're born to be this person, right? Because, I mean, it can be a lonely, being in the arts can be very lonely. It can be very, because, you'll hear no sometimes, you'll hear people rejecting, especially now you put something online and everybody got their opinion, and generally,
yeah.
What I've noticed with a lot of people are more quicker to say when they don't like something than they like something. Like people will,
oh yeah,
like I've done things, right? And people I know, I found out later, like, oh yeah, I saw that thing you did. It was awesome. And I'm like, well, why didn't you say something? How am I supposed to know, right?
I've had that happen.
But the same people, though, you do something they don't like, they be like, man, I saw that thing. That sucked. You know, like they so quick to tell you that,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to be like, you know, you had to have a certain kind of mentality to create something, like make a baby and then put that baby out in the world. And some people might say your baby's ugly, you know, you know, like, and it's not easy, right?
It's
So,
true.
so you know, it is difficult, but I feel like true artists are born to do it. You know, it's like, you know, it's not just, it's a compulsion. It's in your DNA. So, you know, some people can nurse and write, you know, at the same time, but there's other people that's all they do is put their energy into their craft, which is, you know, like I said, writing or whatever. But, you know, one thing I've noticed too about people in the arts, a lot of times the better artists are the worst business people. Like, you know, like, and the ones that are like marginal artists be the great business people. So then a lot of times they'll end up being more successful. So, you know, so my question to you is, you know, it's not just a passion thing, right? Like, this is a business too. So how do you marry those two things without selling out your work?
I would say that trying to handle the business part of it, I feel like that's like a talent itself. Because for me, that's the hardest part. You know, trying to figure out the marketing and trying to get it to the people to where I can get more exposure, to where I can get some more monetary gain for a lot of the art that I do. So I'm still trying to figure out how to marry those cohesively, because uh, it's been a lot of lack as far as business wide, you know, because people will support commercial art way quicker than they'll go for something indie, you know. And a lot of the stuff that I do is sort of soul driven, so you know that's not really easily marketable, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is definitely for sure. So let's talk about the future. What does the future bring for you? Like, where do you look to be as far as singing and the poetry, and are there, and how do you develop your skill at this point? You've been doing it for a while, so how do you continue to develop your skill in singing as well as poetry, so that you can be the best you that is possible?
For me, I guess really high priority is networking. I really like to network because I learn from other artists, especially other artists that are on different levels than I am, and I can learn some of the mistakes they made so that I avoid those mistakes, as well as you know, a lot of the positive things they did, so that I can sort of follow suit and create my own path. So networking is a very big thing for me because I love to learn from other artists. As far as future, one of the big things that I would like to learn is to a better route of publishing. That's a big thing for me, because I came out with a book, but the publishing route that I went wasn't the best route. So that's something I'm really trying to learn, because literature is so important to me, and especially when I put out a work of literature, I want to make sure that it's out there correctly and it's easily accessible for everyone.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we're gonna do some shows in the future about publishing, self-publishing, and you know, this show is really gonna expand on, we're, you know, giving advice as well as talking about different topics that hopefully will help people who are trying to write. Now, advice that you can give a young poet, or shoot, a poet that's been doing it for a while, you know, like, is there anything you could say, or what to avoid or what not to do, or maybe even with the commerce side of the game, like, you know, is there any kind of advice you can give?
I would say, as far as poetry, you know, I guess there's a couple of stigmas that you could avoid to make you a better poet, you know, which is there's more than one way to read a poem, you know, And I find that a lot of people they don't take heed to that. So, they'll do the very stereotypical thing and assume that that's the only way that you can do poetry.
Peanut butter on my bread. That's what I said.
You can do it because that's how it happens, And, another thing is, not every poem rhymes. That's another thing about poetry, that people automatically assume the poem has to rhyme. So those are two big things that you can avoid that can, get you moving along a bit faster than falling victim to those traps.
I like it, man. I like it.
Yeah, and on that rhyming note, if I can interject, greeting card companies, they're always hiring. It's very hard to get in there, but people assume that, the verses that are inside of cards are poetry and that it has to rhyme. And so they just tell you flat out in the submission guidelines, we don't accept rhyming poetry. Don't send that.
Oh, for real? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's almost kind of looked at. Would you agree, Cruz, as amateuristic if it's done too much?
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely see that.
Oh man!
And they pay really nicely for the verses if they're accepted, but it's getting them in. So the rhyming is a no-no for that particular genre.
Dang,
or avenue.
I might need to pull back my submission then. Let me stop.
It's okay sometimes, but just not for them.
Not for them, huh?
No.
Rhyming is not bad. I mean, a lot of my poetry rhymes, so I'm not even knocking the rhyming. It's just that it doesn't, if you know that it doesn't have to, then you don't put yourself in that box.
And honestly, when I first started writing poetry, everything rhymed and I spent a lot of time making sure that it rhymed. And then I got clued in that perhaps you want to, expand and try some other things. Write it a different way and not have everything rhyme. So, it's all a learning process though. And there's so much to learn about poetry. Like I'm just like dipping my toe in the well. It's I'm a baby in this genre. So, here's to learning and to growth and being open to it.
I agree to that. A matter of fact, I would like to give a shout out to one of the writers from the group. Actually, her name is Shannon. I actually learned a whole lot about writing from her. It's one of my favorite writers. I learned a lot about haikus, which is something that I wasn't really up to date on.
Oh wow! See, I love that. I love that people are hooking up in the group and and just that's what it was all started for. Is that we don't have so many spaces as definitely as Black folks to come together like that. So that's why it was so important, I thought. And thank you for coming on the show and and sharing with us. Now I know you're about to read to us, right?
Yes, I'm actually going to read a poem from my book that I came out with.
All right, the floor is yours, my brother.
All right. Well, the name of the book that I came out with, it's right here. It's called Poetic Identity, the Anthology of the Beginnings of a Poet. So it was a collection of poetry that I had written from age 13 to age 20. So when you read the book, you can sort of see where I started and get an idea to where my poetry ended up sounding like. All right. Second. All right. The poem that I'm going to read is called don't forget father. Don't forget father while praising mother. But he is not there, his presence is non-existent. And should I play to make him count, he would be fiction. Forget the distance, I ache for his vision. A story I could hold close as an excuse for forgetting he never had a lost son. I speak as if I'm a boss, like I go hardcore pretending his sight wouldn't cause tears, confusion. Everything I guessed of him becoming pure illusion. Maybe the face of this man, meant to be my dad, was lost in someone else's plan, so I could admit how sad, when the news arose, he might have hit the road, or maybe he was sent, though finding him, he wasn't bent. My mother gave me a name like no other, maybe for him to find me, though it seems he couldn't bother, a fact that I can't put behind me, and I have no knowledge of his image, therefore I never know if the whole time he was watching over me, but emotions he couldn't show. How can I ever remember to forget father when he can't remember to remember me? And
wow.
That.
I like it.
Powerful.
That's awesome, man. Yes.
That's my brother there.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. And the name of the book one more time.
The name of the book is called Poetic Identity.
Poetic Identity. And how can people get their hands on it?
Currently, the only way you can get it is by contacting me and me sending you a copy.
All right. Well, let's do this. Me and Imani hasn't talked about it yet. But this week, Imani, let's come up with something and where someone can, one of the members of the group will get a copy of the book. So I'll get a copy. And I don't know if you want to do a game or something like that, where the prize will be a copy of his book.
That'd be cool.
We'll work it out. Yeah,
we'll work it out. Yes. So I will. I'll get a copy for myself as well as one of the members of the group. So I think that'll be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. That sounds cool.
Yes. So So how can people get you on social media, and you have a website or anything like that?
Yes. I guess the easiest and the quickest way to find everything that I'm on is to type in Google Cruz OmegaSoul, and then everything will come up. On Facebook, I'm Cruz OmegaSoul, as well as on Instagram, and as well as Twitter. So you type that in and then everything will come up. My website is cruzomegasoul.bandcamp.com, and that's where you can find all of my music.
All right. And Imani, how can people get you on social media and all that good stuff? And what can we expect from you coming up soon, Imani?
Coming up, well, I'm just getting off page with the poetry, and so I hope to have a poetry chapbook out by the end of the year.
Oh.
All right.
And I'm at Imani Williams. That's my Twitter handle.
All right. So we will not be on next week due to the 4th of July week, but we will be back in 2 weeks with an all new episode. And we will be talking, it'll be a different format, and hopefully you'll be able to see Imani's pretty face for that episode.
I'm gonna get my get it together. So work on these technical skills so that I'm able to join you guys visually next time. Absolutely.
Because I'm sure the listeners rather see Imani than me. But you can get me at Kinte F on Twitter, as well as you can go to our website. It's indyradio.org. That's INDY radio.org. And also we would love it if you would go to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Black Artists Connected Writers. And also the group is facebook.com/groups/writers BAC. So please make sure you like us and you join our group. There's so many wonderful things going on in the group. Coming up in July, the end of July, there is going to be a writers meetup in Las Vegas. So,
yay! Yes.
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, I'm really hoping to make that joint.
Yes. So we'll be talking a lot more about that as these shows go on, and I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity to get down there to Vegas. That used to be one of my home away from homes back in the day. So,
all right.
So I love Vegas. So we'll see you next time in exactly 2 weeks, and you guys have a wonderful weekend, and God bless.
Indeed. Much
Cruz,
love.
thank you, brother. Thank you. Yes.
Indeed. Thank you both.